Hello, and welcome to this week's Qredible live broadcast. We're joined today, as always, by our CEO and chairman, Brian Fitzpatrick, and we are very excited to have with us today Faye Coleman. Faye is a general management and operations executive with more than 25 years of experience at leading multi-site and multinational operations. She is the founder and CEO of Pure Genesis, a provider of cannabis and hemp products, services, consulting, and educational programming. Faye is an unapologetic voice on what it's going to take for Black and female ownership to be represented and succeed in the cannabis market. Thank you very much for being here with us today, Faye. So just to get us started, could you describe a bit about your background and the journey of Pure Genesis?
I think you're still on mute there, Faye. But by the way, welcome again to the broadcast. It's great to have you. You and your business partner, Priscilla Wynn, are two of my favorite people in the industry. I don't mind admitting that for a variety of reasons, which we're going to get into on this broadcast. So.
I love it, Brian. Thank you so much. And let us say ditto for you and Rick. It has been an honor. And we just learned so much through you guys, not just your mentorship, just through your friendship, which is can be somewhat rare in this industry, but also somewhat the culture. So I'll get into a little bit on my background in terms of who I am and what brought us to Pure Genesis and that full circle moment. But I'm originally from Pittsburgh. So yes, I am a Steelers fan. Yes, I'm aware that we did lose last weekend. So we'll get that right out the way. But I started my career as an engineer, primarily in the food industry. Kraft General Foods, Campbell Soup brought me to New Jersey. I then switched gears, went into senior level positions within retail with the Home Depot, Target, and CVS before getting into cannabis full time. So a lot of folks say, well, why did you leave those Fortune 500 positions and to come into this industry? The whys behind it are purely generational. In terms of health, my mother was a cancer survivor when I was a kid. And I saw her lose 70 pounds on a 5-foot frame. I saw her skin turn coal black and her mental acuity greatly diminished. Had she been able to consume cannabis, she would have had a healthier appetite and a much healthier recovery with her chemo and radiation. Fast forward, her last 17 weeks of life, the week after she passed, I was diagnosed. So I'd always thought about alternative treatments in terms of health. Like on the same time, as you switch to the wealth side, I just had two wonderful children of mine, Jordan and Jay, just graduated from college. And of course, a legacy of some financial freedom is absolutely in order. And, for us, it really is about providing those resources, support for not just your family, but also for your community. So hence 2018. I took a look up from a very successful career, stepped out on faith, flew out to Colorado to a conference, a Women Grow conference, as a matter of fact, to see if this is something I could do or did I need to get back to work because I just saw a bunch of potheads. So I was pleasantly surprised. I came back, determined that this is something I could thrive in, grabbed my bestie, and we got to it. We learned a hard lesson first 6 months out of the gate with a predator. Returned a $10 million check. And at that moment, we decided we weren't going to be held by winning in an application process, and we began to diversify. So today, fast forward, we are a 6-business entity company called Pure Genesis. We are Minority Women Business Enterprise certified. We get about 250 years of experience from corporate to cannabis. Our mission is education, access, and advocacy, and such. We look to be a cannabis provider. Right now, we have secured an annual license in New Jersey, and we're looking to open up our dispensary and consumption lounge in the fall. We have grown hemp now in 3 states. We have a trademark workshop called Now You Know, and we're releasing a beverage called Genesis, which we call the future of happy hour. The last thing I will say is that our priority, though, for all of that I've just said, is that we're looking to be a community first partner. And by that I mean we're looking to bring 50 plus jobs to the area, more than a living wage. 20% of our positions will be through reentry programs. We're going to be offering scholarships and internships as well as profit sharing. So That's
Well,
my journey.
I mean, that all of that is just amazing. It's one of the reasons why, I greatly admire you and Priscilla and what you guys are doing in this industry. And, you know, I come from a different industry as well. We've had this chat before, and we've developed a unique friendship because we both come from, as executives, other industries, and bringing that expertise, from that past, like you have and Priscilla has, that high level executive experience into this industry is very, very important. And I think it's one of the things that certainly drives your differentiation, right, in to investors, that gets investors comfortable with, the cannabis industry because of your background. But it does not but you still have a challenge as an entrepreneur in this industry. Now, I think you have other challenges to overcome. Not only is it a challenge of entrepreneurship, but you're a woman in this business and you're a Black woman in this business, right? So, it hasn't historically been easy, at all, just for anybody to break into this industry from an entrepreneur perspective, but you have these other obstacles to overcome. And, I greatly respect you for what you've done, and just kind of talk about that journey, because I know it hasn't been a straight line. I know there's been a lot of difficulty, and your integrity is also very important in returning that check. You took the integrity way out. So all of those things are about who you are, but talk about that journey.
Well, it has been quite that, Brian. The journey has been long and it has been windy. And I think you're absolutely right. I think the cannabis industry is an entirely different animal as an industry, right? First of all, you have to look at the industry going from legacy to legal, right? And it's trying to heal the scars of the failed war on drugs that were perpetuated, quite frankly, by the Controlled Substances Act, right? As a result, you have a market whose history is marred by the incarceration rate of Black and brown being 4 times more incarcerated than whites. And while today we're trying to bridge the gap with very limited social equity programs. So you've got an industry that sees itself as a culture or a movement, an industry that is seen as both medicinal and recreational in terms of purpose. The point is, that's the start. That's the starting point. So with all these barriers, though, I still believe they can be overcome. I think New Jersey, quite frankly, is striving to improve as the Cannabis Regulatory Commission has prioritized social equity applicants. We have some funding, very limited, but some funding through our NJ Economic Development Authority and through several colleges, as well as the New Jersey Business Action Center. We are now beginning to educate. So we're in the early stages, but there's progress. That said, it's only a small step forward, but I think we're going to see bigger strides. But I say small steps because we only have 60 plus dispensaries open, and we have been legal since 21, right? So there's more to do. The most important piece of that is that there's more to do right now. We need help from the state to provide significant funding to be available through grants and loans, because we can't wait for safe banking or safer banking because businesses, they're losing their property, they're losing their investors, and they're losing their drive. As I shared earlier, we also need to provide funding sources. And one way to do that is, I call them VC brokers. I'm just calling that term. They can, where you can have somebody actually vet funding sources for you and match them to the right investor. We need mentor support. What would be the harm in having some of these MSOs mentor some of these small businesses within maybe a 20-mile radius, and gain those learnings, that collaboration, and those business opportunities. And then, I think one of the most important pieces is, most of the folks who are looking to enter into this business, they really need to look at having some information that would explain the expectations. I think a lot of folks are going into this business, they don't know the expectations, and they've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars just to walk away,
right,
and have an opportunity to move forward.
I think there's a lot of misconceptions that this is a get rich quick business. And folks, It is not that. Okay. Now, a couple of things, by the way, you and I will talk about after the broadcast. Stay tuned for some news. We're actually working with a group that's going to provide capital into New Jersey for social equity programs. So, because they've come to us because they want to make sure that these owner operators and brands and products are all vetted and verified through the Qredible network. So it's kind of a really unique blend, but we'll be talking more about that. And I've already talked to those folks about getting you involved in this because you have been such an outspoken advocate for this in the state. And I think you've really hit the nail on the head on a lot of areas. Like the state does need to step up, and even though I think the Economic Development Association in New Jersey, they do great work, the New Jersey EDA, but the problem is they're limited because they can't use federal funds.
Correct.
So why can't they use federal funds? Well, because cannabis is not federally legal. So like you said, before we wait for safer banking to be enacted or rescheduling or descheduling, whatever it is, and I don't think those federal funds are going to clear until this is descheduled and literally where it's federally legal. So even safer banking, I don't think is going to open up the SBA to all of a sudden a flood of capital. So that is very, very important what you're talking about. So lack of capital, access to capital. Talk about how I think you touched a little bit about these VC brokers or investment banker types, right? But talk a little bit about how you've overcome that in being able to get capitalized.
Well, nothing short of taking a step back and understanding, are you prepared to even ask for capital? Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of times we are not fully versed in terms of what expectations we need to bring to the table in terms of our preparedness and readiness to bring forward that necessary capital, right? So when someone comes up to you and asks, what do you need pre-license, pre-startup, startup, post, do you have those answers? As you look at your business, do you have the right team in place? Do they cover all the bases of your operation? Do you have a pro forma that is realistic and not aspirational? Are you benchmarking against those businesses that are best in class or have best practices in place? Mm-hmm. Have you done the homework? Are you networking accordingly so that you've got enough support solutions out there that are going to have you navigate this industry? Because it will take that. Of course, the normal courses of business in terms of the MJ Business, the MJ Unpacks, NECAN, attending those conferences for education, but it's also the network that's driving that. So all those aspects are required just as a starting point before you begin to ask for money, because of course, when you're asking, the first question they're going to ask back is, what are you offering? Right? So if the team is not in place, if the real estate is not owned, if the municipalities have not been engaged with support, all those things are the tactics that are required just to ask for the money. And then it's making certain that the capital you're looking to raise is consistent with the project you're looking to put forward. So there's a lot of homework to be done. And I say it always starts with having the right team in place so you can make appropriate decisions. And then understanding, what type of capital are you raising? Are you raising debt, equity, a hybrid, convertible notes? What does that look like? And the whys behind it. I always say surround yourself with people that are smarter than yourself and bring the assets to the table that are necessary. So, we've got a crackerjack CPA team that answers those questions for us. So every investor we've had in front of us, they say, where'd you get your numbers from? Not me. So, you've got to make certain you have credible sources that are working with you. Do you have the right legal team in place? All those things matter as you put yourself forward as an entity that is prepared to take on that capital.
Right. And I think your background as a retail executive, with major retail chains, has a lot to play. So not only have you become a big pioneer in this industry for cannabis and hemp, and you've been so influential in those areas, and you've learned. I mean, we've even grown hemp in 3 states, I believe, for a couple of years, right? So what the challenges there were, But that experience as an executive and an operator of large retail chains, I mean, it's got to make investors feel good about the fact that you're not just a stoner that likes marijuana. You're a business executive. I mean, you're a retail executive, and you understand. I think that's a big differentiation that is, I think investors are looking for today, right?
I think you're correct. Absolutely, Brian. One of the things that we always get asked in terms, what is our differentiator? And we say that we operate in the black. Because coming from retail, 70% of our team, it comes from retail. So for us, going into a dispensary model is somewhat the low hanging fruit. Now, of course, we have leaders on our team that have their own dispensaries. So we have that subject matter expertise on deck as well. But there's nothing that says that, hey, I've had responsibilities for 60 targets for store operations with 10,000 associates and 22 direct reports. So I clearly understand what it takes to run a dispensary in a retail fashion, in a multi-state, a multi-unit way, and do it successfully, as does my team. So yes, most investors are very excited to hear that. But also, the credibility behind having those who do have expertise, who do own their own dispensaries, that's equally as important to make sure that we understand customer engagement, inventory management, all the aspects of how to be successful within this industry as we start up and be able to sustain that business.
Yeah, and I think that is, I think there's a great opportunity for partnership with social equity, not only helping some of these operators get their licenses, provide them capital, but also team them up with a good operations team. Right. I mean, those are critical success areas. Like, getting the real estate is, it's got to be funded. You got to secure that location. You've done that. That was no easy task, I know, for you. And you got a beautiful location where you are. And I've seen the
Thank you.
drawings, and I cannot wait for the ribbon cutting ceremony. And you've been through that, but I've heard you say once, and I've quoted you often on this, is that the social equity program sometimes gets you to the front of the line so you can hold the door for everybody with money.
Yes, I have said that. I have said that. And it's actually true, and that's no disrespect to the CRC, because certainly they're doing their part to help us to get to the front of the line. But really, if you don't have the tools to move forward from that standpoint, tools being the real estate, the capital, the team, the ancillary resources for support, it's all for naught. So
Yeah.
you really have to understand where you are on the spectrum of starting up to grand opening, and are you prepared to get yourself from point A to point Z? Because it is an arduous task, and you do need that network of support. You can join organizations like the Minorities for Medical Marijuana. I sit on 5 boards, not because I need a seat at the table, but I want a voice at the table, so I can make certain that the industry itself understands from various perspectives how Black women leaders who are in this business are looking to navigate and move forward, and also so I can advocate on others' behalves. So
Yes.
whether it be the African American Chamber of Commerce of New Jersey, the Cannabis World Congress Business Expo, the National Hemp Association, the New Jersey Cannabis Association, the Policy Commission for the Mayor of New York for Cannabis New York City, all those things are not, again, for busy, but for to be informed and to understand the dynamics of this industry, which are ever changing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know you are a student of history. You love history, right? So, you've really opened up some folks' eyes about how hemp, for example, which, let's face it, I mean, it's all cannabis, right? So it all comes from the cannabis plant, whether you call it marijuana or you call it hemp. They're just grown for different purposes, whether it's CBD or whether it's THC, right? But the roots of this plant just goes way, way back. And, I still boggles my mind that we're calling a medicinal herb, a Schedule 1 drug. I mean, it's just boggles my mind. And I know it's all political, but just from I've heard you tell stories all the way back to Jamestown about this. Could you just talk a little bit about that and the kind of the hemp? Because I know you're a history buff, and it's neat to hear. Really is.
Sure. A lot of times when people talk about the history, our history in this country, American history, one thing that they don't realize is that, of course, as the first slaves arrived in Jamestown, one of the first crops that they had to grow was hemp. Because during the American Revolution, of course, it was mandated that this country grow hemp. It was 100 hemp plants per household. So as that crop was mandated, that was one of the first crops that enslaved people had to grow and harvest. It was so challenging that it was actually referred to as the N-word crop, believe it or not. Which is a hard pill to swallow. And at the same time, it was considered a billion-dollar crop then. So I think most folks don't understand the value of hemp over the spectrum of time. As you have called it, Brian, whether you call it cannabis or hemp or whatever you want to say, CBD or THC, industrial hemp, all those factors exist, but the real value proposition is around industrial hemp. That's really where the money is. But most folks everybody calls cannabis, I think, or THC is the sexy part of cannabis, right?
Yeah.
CBD is more the now part of cannabis, and industrial hemp is the long game.
I mean, there's like 50,000. There's like 50,000 plus uses for industrial hemp. I mean, just
Over,
endless.
yes,
Yeah.
endless uses. And the good news is, and watch carefully, because there's a number of USDA grants that are out there being launched every year that support growing hemp for industrial purposes and actually getting into processing hemp, because the major gap in the industrial market is processing or decortication. Sorry to be so technical, but these are the aspects. If you look into them, they are just low-hanging fruit, and this country is waiting for us to pick that up. The challenge has been that the farming community doesn't trust it, right? And when the pandemic came, it kind of ruffled and shuffled the deck a little bit.
Yeah.
But now is the time for us to really pick our head back up and get in the game on the growing and the processing end of industrial hemp, because that is the long game. And the world is internationally, they're much further ahead than we are right now, but we can catch up quickly, but we got to focus on it and create.
Yeah, and I think that there's a great opportunity for a lot of these, even tobacco farms, to sort of convert into some of that. But even in fairness to the tobacco farmers, they need an outlet. And because what happened to many of these growers in 2019 was just very sad. When there was an oversupply and the prices crashed, and a lot of these farmers lost their retirement. So it goes back to that theme of, I don't think you can look at cannabis, whether it's hemp or whether it's marijuana, as a get rich quick scheme. There has to be a good plan. And quite frankly, we need more support from even the federal government on usages and research of this plant. The stigma of even marijuana and cannabis is just crazy. And I know I've talked to you before about that I'm a man of faith, so I believe that God's put this on the planet for a reason. He just doesn't want us misusing stuff. He doesn't want us getting stoned out of our mind. But there's good reason and good support for this medicinal herb, this wellness herb, to be used. And you've been a great advocate of that. So I really respect the work you've done from the hemp side, from the marijuana side, and advancing the policies in many respects. The plan itself, the social equity side. You're doing a lot of great work. So kind of talk through your vision for that evolution of all those opportunities across these sectors of the population for the industry. What do you see as the future?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, I can sum it up. I think I can sum it up in 2 letters. I think the evolution of opportunities across all sectors is going to be AI. I think right now we are looking at opportunities, and we specifically are looking at opportunities area. And I think there's so much that can be done from process or business assessment, decision making, engagement, quality control, of course, to productivity. AI is going to change the way we do business throughout the entire supply chain, and I know will ultimately increase everyone's bottom line. Of course, this is where, Qredible will be of significant value in terms of the solution that you bring to the table. So I'm excited to see how AI moves the trajectory of the industry, because I think it will take that. I think a lot of people are picking their eyes up in terms of determining where they want to be in the industry, but I think AI will be an overlay across the entire industry.
Yeah, you're speaking my language. You're buttering me up now on that. So, I mean, I am, she knows me as a techno geek, and guess what? So is she, and her partner's an even bigger techno nerd,
Yes, she is.
Priscilla.
Yes, she is. Yes, she is. And by the way, I would say this, if it not for my partner Priscilla, as we got started in this business, we probably wouldn't have this business. She is, we call it the quiet storm and the thunderstorm. She is certainly the quiet storm, and she helps get it done, and has been just a godsend as we move this business forward. Because again, it takes a village, it takes a
Yes.
group, it takes a complement of resources to make it happen. So excited to have her as my
Absolutely.
partner.
And she is wonderful. I feel the same way about my business partner, Rick McDonald, our president, and chief operating officer. I always say that, when Sully landed that plane on the Hudson, right? I mean, he was able to make people survive not just because of his experience and leadership, but he had a very calm operator sitting next to him, in his first officer, and really helping that situation. So you've got that in Priscilla, I've got that in Rick, and it does take a village. And I know that you also talk about teams. So I'm going to sort of, as my last question here, you've got a tremendous team. You've got a tremendous group of people that you've been able to assemble as part of your company. Just talk a little bit about that team.
Yes, and thank you for saying that, Brian, because when I first stepped back to look at this business, of course, I brought Priscilla on board to really help navigate and co-found this company. But as I look to carefully curate every single person that's on this team to make certain, one, there was a complement of skill sets that were going to be needed within this industry, a complement of leadership in terms of how we're going to navigate from government regulations to political opportunities to various organizations, and just the structure of the business in and of itself. And then to make certain that we could bring together a group of folks that wanted to work as a team. More often than not, we can have a group of, how can I put, I'll probably tell my age. We can have a whole team of TOs, and great, but not great together.
Right.
So,
Right.
you want to make certain that as you put that team together, that you've carefully curated those who can work together. Now, as we have an amazing executive team, at the same time, we have a medical advisory board that is second to none, and we have a community advisory board. We have a renowned endocrinologist on our team. The first dispensary owner in the country is on our team. We've got filmmakers, White House execs, research scientists, military leaders, and the like. So we are well apprised in terms of what we brought to the table, because we've done it not for growth, for startup, we've done it for growth, right? So that allows me to sleep well at night, knowing that as we get ourselves started, that our trajectory can shoot straight up because we're prepared and ready.
Amen. And then, the things you're talking about, you mentioned it earlier about education, access, and advocacy. Your team allows you to bring all of that, together. That education is so important to you, and I think it's critical. I know you're so focused on quality, and that access, being able to have access to the industry, the access to the product, and then the advocacy around that. So you've put together the right team to make all of that happen. we're so excited for your launch. Pure Genesis is operating out there with the beverage, and I know that you're going to be launching the dispensary here in New Jersey. Great things ahead for your company, and just know that we're rooting for you. Tell us, how can people get in touch with you and learn more about your company?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, I want to thank you, Brian, and the Qredible team for allowing me to share a little today. We hope that you and everyone on this podcast was able to glean something from what I was able to share. And then also come to our grand opening, as we are going to be looking to open probably in Q3 of this year in Atlantic City. We'll be directly across from the Hard Rock Hotel and Casino. So if anybody's interested in reaching out to us or learning more, you can go to puregenesis.us, our website, or you can check us out on LinkedIn at Pure Genesis or on Instagram at Pure Genesis 410. So thank you, guys.
Absolutely. Thank you. And we are both located, by the way, both Qredible is headquartered in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, as well as Pure Genesis. So
Yes, that's correct.
we share the same headquarters city. So Faye, thanks again for joining us. And please give our best to Priscilla. And we're rooting for you guys. Go get them.
Thank you so very much. Appreciate it, guys. Have a good one.
All right. You too.